Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be upgrading the fuel system on the Chevelle. Our car's fun. I know a lot of people didn't like me doing this, and I didn't like me doing this, but oh boy does it make things easy. So we're going to get this out so I can put a new pump in there. Then we're going to start taking the lines apart and get all new lines made. Should be fun. Only got a day to do it. Some folks have asked about the fuel system on this car. I went kind of simple and reliable, and this is why. I can hold that up with one finger. It doesn't add a bunch of weight. All the parts and pieces that I put on here, I mean, it's heat shielded. It's just factory replacement stuff, but it holds well. And if you're doing an NA car, or even if you're not putting too big of a turbo and you just need to push a little bit of fuel system, this works great. Had the Corvette regulator, 3/8 Dorman line and 5/16 return line. It worked great. So if you're looking for a cheap fuel system, I got another video on that. It wasn't that hard to put together. It's actually pretty easy once you figure out how to make these ends here, and never burnt through with all the dumb stuff that I do with heat and stuff around cars. So yeah. So the first component of the fuel system is going to be one of these quick released AN8 lines. It's going to go right there. There's another style. Evil Energy also makes this style, which kind of screws together over that little quick release metal piece there and makes more of a positive connection. Probably would have done that just for the added safety, peace of mind, if I'd have remembered, but I got the quick release because it was another $2 cheaper. So I guess we'll see what happens with that. Should be fine. It's what the factory lines use, so we'll keep moving. And my parts came. I don't know if you can tell by the boxes here, but I prefer the Evil Energy brand. They're the budget-minded option that's China, but not bad China. So let's make some fuel lines. Well, hello there. It's a new day. You can say that. So sometimes in these builds, you'll do your due diligence and research all your parts, get all your fitting sizes, draw it out on a piece of paper and get everything from point A to point B, get all your parts in one shot because, AN fittings and crap you can't get locally. I did that. I'm running the awromotive Stealth 2 tank. That has a little fuel hat thing. Pump comes out here, has a corrugated plastic tube, comes up and goes into here, feeds into this kind of fuel hat deal. Now originally, to get to push lock fittings, I had to go and make that little steel line that then went to a tube nut that went to some reducers. And when you go on the awromotive site and when you call awromotive, they tell you that that is a AN6 fitting in the end of there. It's not. So what they do is they get this little donkey dick looking thing that's got a threaded fitting that goes in the hat on one side and it's AN6 on the other side. So because that fitting has an AN6 on it, everything that's listed in their tech specification says that that tank is AN6. So when you order AN6 fittings, they don't fit in there. So what I'm trying to say is this awromotive Stealth 2 tank is limited by the 1/8" NPT port on the top. That is the outlet to the fuel pump, which is why they only go up to a 340 liter per hour pump, because you can't get all that fuel through that little hole. So that means that my Walbro 450 pump doesn't work. That's one reason that's not going to work, which is the fuel system that I need in this to drive this. Also, another layer of that is this is an 8mm corrugated plastic hose, and this is a 10mm nipple on the Walbro. Well, I guess the TI automotive now, whatever, but that's a thing. So I went with this tank because it had all the corner sloshy fuel foam crap in there that was supposed to be good for doing twisty turny racy things, which is where I'm eventually going with this. we're gonna save on this. We're gonna figure out how to make this work. So talk with my buddy Bry, Current Auto Performance in El Cajon, California. Thanks, Bry. Came up with a pretty trick idea that I think we're gonna try out. We're gonna get a bulkhead fitting on the front of that. That's a 3/8 bulkhead fitting, right? Which is what AN8 I think is, which is what my feed line is gonna be going all the way up. So 0 restriction, right? Should be also the same size as the 10 mil corrugated tube. So if you see where I'm going here, I'm going to put that 450 in the stealth tank bucket. I'm going to get a new corrugated plastic tube. Corrugated plastic tube is going to be 10 mil. That's going to go from the pump to the bulkhead fitting. So basically we're going to put the pump on the hanger assembly inside the tank instead of it dipping down and come back up and going into this contraption here. We're just going to stick it over that away and put a bulkhead fitting. So out of the bulkhead fitting I can connect my AN lines, and then I don't have to worry about this 1/8 inch NPT restriction. So from there I'm going to get all the way up to the front. Not sponsored by Evil Energy, but I did order a box full of their crap. Tried to think a little bit ahead on this, so I got some PFTE lines. So if I ever do E85 in the future, not that my line size would be big enough, but I can. I'm running 6 feed and a 6 return and an 8 feed. So I figure if I ever step it up in the future, I can just keep the 8 as the return and step up to a 10 if I need to for the feed side. I've got one of their big old large fuel filters. It's got the stainless element inside. It's supposed to be good. With E85 also, I went with the budget option on the regulator, which I haven't mounted yet. So I'll be running this PQI regulator, and the PQI regulator with the AN10 holes in it. There's another one with different holes, but it's like real narrow on the inside, so you can't really get a lot of flow through it. So that's what we're going to attempt to do for the fuel system. We're going to try to get this going. The problems that we have today is we have to get the fuel out of this tank. I was an idiot and just refilled it thinking that we were good to go. So I'm going to get the fuel out of this tank. Probably going to rig up this 200 pump to a section of hose and just shoot it into one of the other vehicles on the property here, and then we'll get this tank out and start moving forward. Join me. Well, this is going to get weird. Bear with me. So I got the 200 pump in there, hot wired it to the drill battery, running 20 volts, so it should spin extra fast. Got a piece of hose jammed on there, and I'm going to jam it into the tank. And then I'm just going to make 5 trips or however many gallons is in here to the different cars and fill them up. So, fire extinguishers right there. See what happens. Alright guys, we got the pump out. It's pretty basic assembly. You've got your hanger assembly here, which your pump runs on. Power wires coming across the bulkhead connector. And the bulkhead connector basically just has 2 hoses on it. These 2 hoses are going to be feed and return, and they go to hanger assembly. Feed goes onto the pump, return comes back to this little rubber dick. You can see here the evidence I've had issues with these compression gaskets. They're a foam. They compress down, to make up the gaps around these deals here, the ribs and stuff. But I've been through probably 3 of these. Each time I call Aeromotive and say, is there another option? Because I can just smell the fuel coming out, and I open my thing and it just eats away at the gasket, compresses it down, and then it just dumps out the back here. Anything over about 3/4 of a tank. I've tried a few different sealants on here and didn't work, so I mean, they say, we've never had that problem. And they got the little plastic washers that go in here. And I mean, I'm sure some folks have great success, or that's just, they don't have the access cover that allows the fumes into the cab and can smell like I can. But I'm going to get that sealed up. We got some RTV fuel safe stuff, so when this goes back together, I can cover that. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to be eliminating this from our system. As you can see here, the restriction in this whole tank design is this 1/8 inch NPT, which is probably great if you're running, you know, factory stuff, NA, just a cammed car up to 500 horse. This probably works fine. And the reason I went with this tank is because it has all the, you know, mats and foam in here, the little foam bucket that the pump sits in, which is great because as you're sucking everything out, and I saw this when I was draining the tank, there's barely anything in there, but that pump or that foam just sucks it up right around the pump, and then I just tap the power wire and it sucks it out, and it just, the foam just absorbs it. So that's great. It works awesome. If I ever did this in the future, I probably wouldn't spend what I spent on this tank, and I would just get some of that foam to put around something or do a different design. But I'm thinking with this hanger assembly, I should be able to strap 1 or 2 450 pumps on it, and if I'm not limited to this, then I can figure out a way to, we're just not going to connect this little guy. This is just going to go back in here. I'm going to put some 1/8 inch NPT pumps on here, and we're going to pretend like that's not there, and I'm going to put 2 bulkhead fittings here, and I'm going to get all the fuel I need out of that. If you ever wonder what trash is in your fuel tank, that'll catch it. That'll catch it. One thing I want to mention, I got this pump, and I'm trying to mock it up here, and you got to make sure, one, that your light's on, right? See if I can get that lit up. You got to make sure that when you're doing this, you set your height right. That mat, that sock, is touching the bottom, and that's just enough that with the gasket on here, it's going to be right on the bottom of the tank. There is a little foam it sits in, but then that sits on that little piece of rubber right there. So that will all compress, and we'll get our height right. All right, you can see the size difference here, side by side from the 200 to the 450. Just got a bigger butt. So, and this is the devil that started this whole thing. It's got 1/8 inch NPT we covered before. Comes up, comes out of, throw it down. Comes up and comes out of that hat there. Gonna run plugs. I only find one. I gotta buy another one. But that's gonna sit in here. I do have 10 gauge wire. Well, coming off the battery, there's like I think a 4 gauge. It goes to a continuous duty relay, which turns on with Holly. Then that sends me 10 gauge, true 10 gauge, over to this from that relay. So I should have no problems with power here. But when I open this up, it just had these little wires here running the pump. So I added what was the wiring for the other pump and just kind of doubled this up here. Excuse that, I couldn't get my soldering iron to get hot enough to melt this, so it's got a crimp connector and it's vacuum or heat shrinked on there. It ain't going anywhere. Electrically tested it, 0 ohms through there, so it's a good connection. doubled the wires, and then I don't have the connector to upgrade this. This is the connector that Walbro sent, so that must be what they want the gauge to be. I don't know what that is, 14, 16, something like that. So I figured as much voltage as I can get to this, I'll start upgrading wire. So that's where we're at. I got this little tiny guy for the sending unit. So that's gonna go in there like so. I drilled 2 of my holes here. I got some fittings on the way. I don't know what size they are, but when we get to that, we'll get to that. It's basically a bulkhead fitting. It's got a hose barb on the inside and an AN8 on the outside. So I'll be able to put my feed lines, or feed and return line, right there. If I'm ever wanting to add another pump or whatever, then I can just, add another pump on the side of that, run another set of wires over here, and plug another bulkhead fitting here, which I guess is what you would do in a factory tank if you didn't spend all this money for this. But that's what we're doing. So when the mail gets here, we'll pop those in there, and then I'll start making my lines to get going where I need to get going. Got my regulator mounted. There's already a little bracket here on the back side of these fuel rails, so I just kind of took a piece of flat stock, bolted it to that, and then captured 2 bolts on this regulator so it's nice and tight. And then I got one of those, well, I think I covered that earlier, that push lock fitting going to an AN8, and then the fuel line kit came with this almost 180 fitting, so I did one there, a little short sectional line, and a little right there. So I got 8 AN feed. This is my return line coming up here. It's a 6 AN6, so that's going to go to the bottom there, and it'll all be tucked out of the way nicely. I can see how much fuel pressure I got and adjust it right there, and then we'll start making this other feed line. I got somewhere, nope, I think I covered this earlier. I got the Evil Energy big old filter. I'm gonna throw some, these are Orb 10 I think fittings, so I'm gonna run some Orb 10 to AN8 fittings on there, and then this will go in line between the tank and the regulator. Alright guys, where our fitting got here, so we're gonna attempt to put this in this little guy, tighten down the jammer nut, and I also got a 10 mil tube that will fit the Walbro pump. So that's going to go from there to there. It's going to be crimped on here. I've got the, I don't know what they're called, special crimpy guys. They're going to go on that. And that should get us set up for the feed. On the drain side, I got another one that's exactly the same. I'm going to do same things. So let's get this installed. All right guys, well there it is. I've got the drain side connected. It's a pain to get your hand in there. I got big meaty hands. It's got the 2 fittings on there. Went a little overboard with the fuel resistant gasket. Doodabs on there, I just don't want it to leak. So I got 2 ANs on there. One side's gonna be 10 mil, and it goes to this corrugated hose. I'm gonna use the factory, the awromotive hose is a 8mm hose. It's got this little doodabber on the end of it. I'm gonna try to keep that and give myself a little extra slack. So I got me a, that goes from 8mm to 10mm, a little brass job. And that's gonna get crimped down to the drain, the clear hose here, and the black hose here. And that will be the drain line, and give me a little bit of slack also. And then I've got a 300mm, I don't know what that is in American, a little bit shorter than this little guy. That's gonna go on here. This will be my feed side. And I'm gonna run, I'm gonna drop it in the tank. I'm gonna run it like so, and then we don't have to worry about all the stuff on there. So can't put this in, can't put the tank in yet, which story of my life, waiting on parts again. So we're gonna keep moving forward and get the rest of the fuel system buttoned up, and I'm just gonna set this in the trunk and work around it. Well, guys, that's about as far as I can go on this with the fuel system for now. Again, we're waiting on parts. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. It's getting kind of long. And when we get parts in, we'll put it back in and start it up. And I'll show you guys shaking down from all the other things we're about to do. But hang in there. There's plenty of chaos and plenty of surprises ahead. We'll see you next time.
Action. Fire. I just wake up and piss excellence, and I want to go fast.
You're not first, you're last.
I was high when I said that. Did real good. Car ran real good.